What's up, everybody? This is Danny Arujah with Get Fit with Danny A. And today we have a special guest. His name is Yong, and he's with us today. And he's going to talk about his experience with implementing the approach that I taught him so he can get in shape, get stronger, get leaner, and live a healthier lifestyle. So, Yong, hello. Thank you for being here today with me.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for everything you've done for me this year.
Of course. My first question to you is, can you just tell us off the bat how much weight you've lost so far and how long did it take you to lose that weight in?
Sure. So I weighed about in the 230-pound range at the beginning of this year. And then it wasn't until I think towards the beginning of this year, that's when I reached out to you. I'm like, oh my God, this weight is just going insane. And then it wasn't until I would say maybe mid-year. So around, I remember 4th of July being sort of where I would really start to lose a lot of weight. I would see the weight coming off a lot, and actually people around me were noticing. And then so up to this point, I've lost close to 45 pounds.
45 pounds. Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
How does that feel? I mean, 45 pounds is one plate of weight.
I know, and it's so funny because because I'm always with my weight and I'm around 24/7 with my own weight. It's very gradual. When I think back to like how I would actually feel versus how I feel right now, just in terms of being able to do some of the body weight exercises, let's say something like pull-ups, where before I would be struggling to just do like maybe 2 or 3 pull-ups, where now I'm actually doing these blasts where I'll be going into like 6, 7 reps per set. It really feels a lot healthier for me, just in terms of being able to maintain my level of energy and strength throughout the whole day.
Got it. So, what were some of the frustrations and problems you were experiencing before you implemented my system, my approach?
You know, I think probably my biggest weakness, I have to say, is nutrition. I mean,
Everybody
what
did.
I would eat, because I'm always a fairly active person. I always love exercise. I love martial arts. I love working out, but I also love to eat. And then so one of the things that I would really find myself, and it was really a learning experience this year, is that when I eat a lot of bad food, I just want to eat more bad food. And it's one of those things where it just becomes this downward spiral where, like, if I would have maybe cookies or snacks, and then maybe 3 hours later, I just want that sugar craving again. And then so I think one of the big lessons that I learned this year is that once you actually acknowledge that and you see and you know what food is doing to you just psychologically, how it could really just kind of manipulate you in a way where it's like, wow, because you had a little taste of this and now you want more, versus, is this really something that you need, or is this something that you really enjoy actually? And the reality is that I think one of the things that I've really learned this year is that I probably wasn't really enjoying a lot of those sugary snacks and a lot of these like very starchy foods. It was just one of those things where I would end up doing it. It becomes a habit. It's like, oh wow, it's 8 o'clock. Let me have a plate of dim sum. And it wasn't even so much that I'm enjoying it, but it almost became a force of habit. And then so for me, it's one of those things where I am definitely a creature of habit. And once I get into a certain routine, I will just either grab for those cookies or grab for those donuts or grab for those dim sum. And so one of the things that I have really worked on is acknowledging, is this something that I'm really enjoying? Do I really want to do this? Do I need to do this? And then once I started to look at that in an honest way, then I said, you know what, this is really something that I could live without and actually not miss.
So what? So sugar cravings. It seems like your eating was all over the place. You had no structure with your eating. You basically would eat out of habit. And it sounds also like now you're more aware of what you're eating. You're more conscious of what you put in your mouth.
Absolutely right. I think one of the smartest things that, and I was probably a little bit stubborn in the beginning, buying a food scale. And I think it's really funny where
But it's helpful, isn't it?
absolutely it's one of those things where the scale's not going to lie to you. That's either a 5 ounce piece of meat or it's not. And when you just kind of like, oh, I think this is 5 ounce ish, and then it's you're then eating like a a 1 pound steak. And then so one of the things that so that was good. And then once you start actually understanding portion size and actually understanding what your body needs versus what you think you really need, and it's really being manipulated by what you want at that moment,
Yeah.
you really start to get into a habit where it's like you understand, oh, okay, I this is what I need. And then when you eat this, and then I think also based on the meal plan that you put me on, where it's like I know I'm going to be eating in another 2.5, 3 hours, so it's not like I have to stuff myself. And that's the other thing that I would usually do a lot. I would once I start eating, I just love to eat, and then I would always eat until I was full. I was very stuffed, and I no longer do that. I just really eat until I'm no longer hungry, and that's a huge difference for me.
Have I ever told you not to have anything? Do you ever feel like you're on a restrictive diet? Have you ever felt deprived? Do I encourage you to go eat crappy meals at times?
Right. I think one of the things that was very smart early on that you instilled upon me is that if I if I'm so rigorous with my diet, and this is nutrition versus diet, but if I'm so rigorous with that, it's not going to be sustainable. I might be able to do it for a few months. I might be even be able to do it for a year, but it's not something where I'm going to feel comfortable with. And at some point, the dam is going to break, and then it's going to not only put me back to where I was, but maybe even worse. So I think one of the things that just knowing it's like, hey, it's not if you want to go ahead and indulge every once in a while, it's not the end of the world. That's all part of living. And then so that really just gives you the freedom for me to say, all right, but do I even really want? Maybe if I'm out with a bunch of friends, so I'll save those moments for those kinds of indulgence. But it's not something that I feel like I'm missing out if I'm not having it. So that's a huge flexibility kind of built into in the back of my mind for with this whole program that I'm on.
So what's the biggest discovery you experienced by approaching the program, working with the program? What's the biggest takeaway you can give somebody who's possibly in your shoes or deciding maybe it's not going to work for me, or I don't know. They're really, because there's a lot of gurus out there that talk about diet. Like, what was the biggest discovery with my approach that made it stand out from others?
I Yeah, right. So I will admit, I think it's kind of funny because I've always been a big heavy guy, and then so every once in a while I'll get these bursts of inspiration where like, hey, you know what, let me try to lose weight, and then what's really funny when I think back now, it's I would really be basically not making any change or any strategic differences. I would just more or less be doing what I have always been doing, which is really then if you're always doing what you're doing, then you're not going to be making any changes. I think one of the things that so in addition, you actually have provided some very detailed scientific information that actually backs up a lot of the what you eat, how much you eat, how when you should eat. So that was helpful. So having that kind of
Satisfying
background
your
knowledge.
satisfying your metabolic needs, right?
Yeah,
It's not
that's
an
right.
arbitrary number. It's a number that comes from your body, and you have to fulfill that number. And if you fulfill that number, you don't feel stuffed. You have energy. You feel satiated. Your energy and mood are level. Correct?
Absolutely. And what really once we kind of get past all that sciencey stuff, what's really effective for me and what's making it sustainable is once I can sort of understand and literally and figuratively digest that information, then what I can prepare throughout the day, I already know. And so it's really it's not it's something that people have to think like, oh, I have to bust out the micrometer and measure everything down to precisely. It becomes very easy to sustain because it just becomes part of your daily
It's a
life.
habit.
It's just a habit, and you can just go ahead. When you go shopping, you already know, okay, I need this much meat, I need this much carbs, I need this much fat, and then so it's very easy to just slap together a meal. So now that I kind of understand, okay, these are the portions that I need to go ahead and nourish my body for in the morning, afternoon, late afternoon, so on and so forth. It becomes I mean I prepare the way if things are not easy and well, if things are not simple for me and things are overcomplicated, it turns me off right away. Like
Of
I
course.
am such a creature of okay, as simple as possible. And then so I've been able to go ahead and take the scientific information that you've given to me and then actually incorporate that in my day-to-day habits and my day-to-day life, where now it's like so easy for me to, okay, I already basically have the day's meal prepared. I just go ahead, either heat it up or cook it up, and then it's so simple because now I don't have to really worry about, okay, I know when I'm going to be eating. I sort of know, okay, I'm not going if I go ahead and prepare these meals and eat this, I'm not going to be hungry and then later on pig out throughout the day, which that has always been another issue for me where because I work a lot, I'm definitely a workaholic. And then so sometimes I will let myself just not eat almost throughout the whole day. And then at the end of the day, just pig out on, and then now I'm really starving. So I will just eat like the worst junk food and fatty foods just to go ahead and satiate myself for not having eaten throughout the day.
So how would your life be different if you didn't apply my program to your life?
You know, I guess that's one of the things that we don't really know. It probably I would be on that same thinking, oh, okay, this year let me lose some weight. And I would probably just still be thinking about wanting to do something, just but then not really making any changes, just doing more of the same.
Do you feel like this is something that you could sustain for the rest of your life? Is it overly complicated?
I absolutely can because, like I said, if it was not simple, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it in the first place. So I once I actually read it's pretty fascinating. Once you actually read how your food how the food that you put into your body reacts with your metabolism, and you start to see, okay, yeah, that is true. I do get this kind of sugar crash when I go ahead and I overeat this kind of food. And once you actually start to absorb some of that technical information, and then you put it into practice, but you do it in a way that's not, I mean, let's be honest, we're all busy people. So when we're preparing food, you understand, okay, I need this much protein, this much carbs, and then you start to get a feel for what that is. So it's not hard to sustain that over the long run because it's really something that you can simplify for your lifestyle.
Do you feel like you're eating more before or more now?
I was definitely eating a lot of the wrong foods before. And I guess if I'm honest, I would definitely be eating because of that. I think I would be stuffing myself and in some cases, maybe eating like 50%, maybe even twice as much more than
So
I
feast
am
or
now.
famine, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I remember some of the meals that I would be eating. I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, that could be like 3 meals just based on the volume of food.
So how long into it did you realize like, oh wow, this is actually working? Like I feel different, I look lighter, my clothes is changing. How long was it before you experienced when you reached that benchmark of like, wow, this is working?
Right. So I think for me, there was like two milestones in particular. So, like I said, in January is I think when you and I sort of
Yeah, January,
started this up.
February.
That's right. And then I think late March, I remember like late March, it was like right around April Fool's Day where I would actually start, I would get on the scale, I would start to feel a lot lighter, and I'm like, oh, okay, things are starting to pick up. And then I have to admit, that was those first like 2 months were it was kind of a whole adjustment phase for me. So trying to get rid of a lot of the junk that I would eat. So what I didn't want to do is I want to be very realistic and I wanted to gradually do this. I want to be serious about this. I didn't want to do this in a way where it's like, because I've done this before in the past where I'd be very excited. Overnight, I would change everything about the way I eat and the way and then all of a sudden it's like I could do that, but then maybe 2 weeks later, it's like, I no longer have the same enthusiasm and then I drop it. So I wanted to really go ahead and the changes that I would make, I wanted to do it gradually and slowly and then make it permanent. And then so it took about 2 months where I think where I would actually, that was the first milestone where I think like maybe 12 pounds I noticed came off. But then, like I said, I think around July is when kind of the next big milestone where things really start to pick up. And I think I kind of doubled down on really being much more fastidious with following the nutrition that I would need. And then a lot of the sweets I remember and the junk. I mean, I would sometimes end the day with opening up tube of Pringles, and once you open up one, I mean the whole
Once
tube
you
is
start, you
gone.
can't stop.
Yeah, the whole thing is gone. And so I think it probably for me, because I did this sort of slow and steady but serious approach to this. I mean, I think the 6 month month is really when I noticed like that was where I lost over 20 pounds. And I could really feel myself, the energy would pick up, and then I could see like, oh wow, okay, now this is really good, starting to pick up. So and this is
So
getting
six
real.
months in, you felt the psychological change also, besides the physical change?
It's psychological, and then the whole lifestyle change, and I really, the sort of late night snacking and the cravings, I mean those all kind of went away. I mean once I started to pick up the good habits, all the things that I thought I really wanted, and again I think a lot of that was just based on my sort of, oh okay, it's 8 o'clock, it's time to grab for the chips or the ice cream or something like that.
Yeah.
None of those cravings really were something because I wanted it. I think it was just more like it was something I did.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
yeah, and a lot of those just kind of went away.
But you still have cookies, no? And
I
chips?
every once in a while, but I actually when I go out with friends, and I might order dessert, but actually when I'm by myself, it's not really something that I'm even craving that much.
That's great.
So yeah.
That's really good. What would you say to somebody who's on the fence in taking charge of this aspect of their life, their health and fitness, their nutrition and working out? What would you say to them to as some type of motivation and some guidance because they're just not sure of whether or not this may work?
Right. I think one of the things that for me, if there was any sort of takeaway for myself that I could think about, I think the big part would be you have to really kind of take an honest look at yourself in terms of, is this something that you're willing to do? Because I think it's very easy to get excited for like the first week, the first 2 weeks, the first month. And then the thing that's going to be tough is this something that you could do every day for the rest of your life? So I think that there is an honest look at, is this a change that how serious are you about this? And then because it is going to take a little bit of concerted effort and deliberate effort to begin with. And then once you make it into a habit, then it's just something you do, and it does become a lot easier. But I would say that that is something that to begin with, you really do have to take an honest assessment of yourself. How badly is this a change that you want to make?
How beneficial was it for you to know that you had a strategy, and not only did you have a strategy, you understood how food is used in order for you to live life, heal from a workout, as energy, as growth, as recovery.
Right. I think that that is probably the one difference maker in the past. And like I said, I've always been a big guy, and I'd always go ahead and attempt to go ahead and lose weight. All of those, thinking back now, probably the one thing that was in common with all of those is I would just try to do it on my own. And that is, there is a difference between having someone like you to fall back on, having a coach to sort of fall back on, hey, either this isn't working, or what if I did this, or I'm noticing. I think whereas before in the past, I would just kind of echo chamber myself. It's like, oh, okay, I think I kind of feel good here. And then, go ahead and really revert back to the same past behaviors, and that really made it difficult to go ahead and achieve my goals. So I think that if all of the things that I've done in the past that didn't work, the one thing that wasn't common is I would convince myself, oh, I think this is something I can kind of do on my own. And obviously, for myself, that was not successful.
Well, I'm sure it's like that for a lot of people.
Yes,
That's why they're all stuck.
right.
Thank you, bro. I,
Absolutely.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate your time and your insight and you sharing your journey with me. I appreciate your time, and I'm very, very excited that you've lost 45, 50 pounds. And like I told you, I personally believe you're just like hitting the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more great stuff coming your way with your health and your fitness.
Thank you, Danny. I mean, I gotta say, for somebody who just turned 51 right now, I mean, this is,
Happy belated
I,
birthday.
thank you. I mean, this is one of those things where I could see myself going either pick this road or this road, and I'm definitely very glad that I was able to go ahead and sit down, talk with you, and go on this road because otherwise I could see myself another year from now. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. It would be a disaster.
Well, thank you so much for your time, man.
Okay, great. Thanks, Danny.
Congratulations. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.